Okay, so we're in the first plot of the morning and we've got Becky Howard, PGRO, and we're going to have a look at some of the trials that are going on as part of the Answers project. Becky, for those who are listening and watching who've perhaps never heard of the Answers project, do you want to summarise what it is, what you're looking at?
Yeah, so the project started about a year and a half ago. We're in year 2 of trials. It's funded by DEFRA through Innovate UK with co-funding from the partners. It's led by PGRO UK with University of Lincoln, PGRO and Yara, and the purpose of it is to look a bit more deeply at crop nutrition in field beans. So there's been gaps, we think, in knowledge about nutrition in field beans, and we're trying to fill some of those. We've done some of that in the past through PhD students and previous work, but this is really looking at base nutrition, so applied at drilling, followed by foliar treatments as well as some seed treatments that are included in this trial as well. We've had the results from the first year, and we've sort of rationalised this treatment list based on the results of the first year, bearing in mind that the first year was 2025, so that was a very dry year. We didn't see huge yield responses, but we have seen some promising results in nitrogen fixation. So we're following up on those results again this year, and with one extra treatment but reduced the treatment total list overall. All the products, or most of the products that are in here are Yara products, of course, because Yara is a major partner in this project. And we're also, alongside the nutritional aspect of this project, closely looking at how different varieties respond to the products as well. So we're not looking at individual nutrients here, we're looking at product mixtures, and we've got 4 spring bean varieties and 2 winter bean varieties in the trial across 4 sites. So the sites, one is with us at PGRO, Lincoln University have a site there, MPZ have got their own site down near Cambridge, and Yara have their sites up in Yorkshire, so all quite different soil types. You can probably see, perhaps not through the camera, but we're on quite a light sandy soil type here at PGRO this year, so really critical actually to get good nutrition into the crop.
Why do you think there is a sort of gap perhaps in the understanding or knowledge of the nutrition that the crop needs? Where does that sort of stem from, and what do you know the areas that you're particularly interested in where there might be a bit of a gap?
Yeah, so there's been more work done in the sort of looking at sulphur, P and K. In here, the foliar mixtures mainly include things like manganese, boron, molybdenum, zinc, copper, and they're different products. The gap, I think, stems from, most people use RB209 as their guide for nutrition in all crops, and that has not really been updated for legumes for quite some time, or certainly not for field beans. They are a little bit stubbornly unresponsive sometimes to nutrition, and I think it's a case of updating them. What we're trying to do is a practical update so that we can advise the types of products that will work well in beans. We're not necessarily aiming to change our RB209, but depending on the results that we get in 2026, we might look more closely at individual nutrition, so things like molybdenum, boron, sulphur, manganese and magnesium, for instance, and see whether those nutrient recommendations can be adjusted slightly.
Okay. And visually, appreciate this probably doesn't work quite as well for our audio listeners, but visually you can see quite a lot of difference in these plots. Is that more to do with the variety than the treatment, or is there some things that you can pick out
I think,
here?
To be honest, looking at these plots here, I think we've definitely got Genius here, which is one of the MPZ varieties, and then next to it, if you can see over there, that is, I'm just going to have a quick look at my plan, that's Yukon. So I think there's some varietal differences, and certainly in year 1 we saw where we got statistically significant differences, they were between the varieties.
Right.
So there were definitely yield differences between the varieties, definitely protein content differences between the varieties, and it was the treatments that affected nitrogen fixation actually, as opposed to variety. So yeah, there are some differences, but at the moment they're mainly variety related. and they all respond quite differently to the soil types that we're on here. But yeah, so at the moment I can't. It's visually difficult to see any differences between the treatments, I think, and that will really come out when we do the harvest, the protein content.
And what kind of growing season has it had here? I know we talked earlier about having a bit of a challenging site here in that the soils are quite light and we haven't had probably quite as much rain as you'd like. Is that fair to say?
No, we could have done with more rain here, but I would say overall, so on our site, I think we've had a challenge in terms of rainfall. I wouldn't say that's necessarily true across the whole country, though. I think beans have done extremely well in some areas. Winter beans struggled a bit early on with chocolate spot, but a lot of crops did recover, even though they were very badly damaged by chocolate spot. And we've seen some really good-looking bean crops across the country. So I think this site is not great for beans, but it shows what can happen on a difficult soil type, doesn't it? So, but yeah, I've seen some really good crops elsewhere, definitely.
And perhaps just talk us through the plots that we've got here. So you said we've got a variety of, lots of different varieties, but then a number of different treatments that we've.
Yes, this is all Genius that we're looking at here, where you can see that. Obviously, for listeners to the podcast, won't be able to see the signs.
You can watch this online if you're listening. Listening on the podcast, we will make it.
So we've got mixtures really, and as I say, most of them are Yara products. We've got Kieserite in here as a base treatment across all of them except the untreated, so that's manganese sulphate. Mm-hmm. We've got treatments that include N-Rhizo, which is a seed treatment, Mancozin, which contains manganese, copper and zinc, Fotrel Pro, which is one of the more promising ones, I think, certainly from the 2025 season, and that has a broad range of nutrients in it. So that's magnesium, sulphur, boron, manganese and molybdenum. And I think we forget sometimes about things like boron and molybdenum, and they're quite important for nitrogen fixation, root development, nodule development. So they are important for beans, and hence why we've got them in this trial to see how they're impacting on the different measures that we're taking.
Is that overlooked as part of growing the crop, do you think, from a lot of growers? Do you think, we have lots of conversations where growers, perhaps say that they don't pay as much attention to a bean crop as they might a wheat crop, for example, but is this one of the areas that they're perhaps referring to?
I think trace elements are sometimes overlooked, not always. I think, some growers do use trace element mixtures in crops. Many people are focused on P and K. We don't use nitrogen, of course, in beans. So, and most people would follow the guidance in RB209, which is to maintain indices for P and K, which is really important as well. And I think if it is ignored, certainly deficiencies in P and K have huge impacts on crop production and yield. And potash is probably the most common deficiency that we see at PGRO coming through our plant clinic. In terms of boron and molybdenum, sulphur in particular as well, which is also important for nitrogen fixation, they may get somewhat left behind, but that's why we do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
sorry, interrupted. We were just going through the treatment.
So, Flostrel has got a little bit of nitrogen in it actually, and boron, and then Optitrack, which is the additional treatment that we put in, Optitrack has got nitrogen, potash, boron, zinc in it. So we've got little bits of nitrogen going on in trials, of course. Technically, that's not possible in crops. So,
due to these treatments available on the market now, or are these ones that they're being
developed?
Yeah,
they are. They're all Yara products.
Yeah.
Yara is one of the, it's a big partner in the project. So, of course, and it's good to access their products for this trial, I think. So.
And this is a 3-year programme, is it, Answers?
Yes, we've got one more year of trials into 2027, and then that'll be the end of the project. So. it finishes, hopefully, the aim is that the project finishes in October next year. We're just trying to get an extension to harvest date next year. So regardless of whether that happens, we'll do the trials anyway.